It's the 9th of September in the great 2021 that humanity hopefully will remember. There'll be somebody here to remember it. Found some circus movie because we're talking about the tanks. I should be playing in church music because it's genocide, ecocide, omnicide. I counted the tanks. There's not 1,000. There's 750. But it's worse than that. 150 of them are small tanks. If you look at nuclear, no matter which story you cover, it's full of lies. I've never had a story on nuclear where they told the truth. Never. It's always been incredibly constructed to brainwash anybody that's trying to comprehend. Here's a picture you don't see too often, before and after. And there's still only 700 tanks. 150 are so small that it takes 20 of them to fill up one of the big ones. The tanks are actually empty, by the way, as you'll understand. If you're with the International Atomic Energy Agency, that's a Geiger counter up in the corner in case you're wondering what it is. TEPCO is unable to bring contaminated water issues under control at Fukushima Daiichi. April 21st, 2014. So there's a story out today that the IAEA, aka UN, and the World Health Organization is United Nations too, right? By the way, they took down my World Health Organization video from a couple of days ago. And he said, you are not allowed to debate the World Health Organizations. It's just like, can't be real. Let's talk about that for a second. By the way, I'm Dana Durnford. You can call into the show. It's 709-589-4406. Unlike the World Health Organization and IAEA, I don't hide away from anybody. How do you have a conversation by doing that? So they took my video down last night. And so the first one on my new account, because they took down my account with 24,000 subscribers a few weeks ago, because you're not really allowed to talk about Fukushima or the World Health Organization or 9/11. That's what they actually say. You're not allowed to debate it. Get a load of this. So they took down the video. I appealed it. See behind me the appeal? I appealed it. I said, soon there will be nobody left to fight for you or your loved ones. And unbelievable, they still wouldn't put my video back up. Community guidelines, medical misinformation. Medical misinformation. Okay. YouTube doesn't allow content that explicitly disputes the word of the local health authority, which is getting their marching orders from the World Health Organization's guidance on social distancing and self-isolation that may lead people to act against that guidance. So the whole world is not allowed to debate the World Health Organization. Nobody. Do as you're told, or we'll take your site with 24,000 subscribers down, which is what they've done. Why the World Health Organization is a corrupt, degenerate scumbags. What else is new? Really, what else is new, right? Oh, hang out. I mean, that's shocking. You can't have a debate And I was covering an article about the World Health Organization that is viral out there. All the media carried it. But no, you're not allowed to say that, Dana. Hi, everyone. TEPCO is unable to bring contaminated water issues under control at Fukushima Daiichi. TEPCO, of course they can't. They're a operator. They're not a manufacturer. They're not a decommissioning authority. You put them in charge so the nuclear industry and the IAEA and the rest of them can we didn't see or hear or speak anything. It's not our fault. The Advanced Liquid Processing Systems, ALPS, has yet to function reliably. April 21st, 2014. It's over 3 years after the nuclear meltdowns of multiple reactors and fuel pools occurred. Has yet to function reliably. No, they couldn't get near it because it's extremely radioactive. You'll understand it coming out. As soon as you run 2.2 sieverts a liter of water, that's only better, by the way. For some reason, there's no neutrons in that water. There's no gamma in that water. There's no alpha in the water, just better. TEPCO admits the ice wall will not stop groundwater from entering the crippled! I apologize. I get a little excited sometimes when I see extinctions events. I know the world frowns on that. At least the nuclear apologists do anyway. I got two pictures of Reactor 3 and Reactor 4. And if you think they're crippled, well, I'm going to close down my site. Right here, right now, in the next couple of minutes. Does that look crippled to you? That's it was Reactor 4. And that's Reactor 3. Does that look crippled to you? Or does it look destroyed? Because if it looks crippled, then I'm wrong. And the scum is right. Fukushima Prefecture requests Japanese government... we're getting there. We'll cover the IAEA story in a couple of minutes here. From today, Fukushima Prefecture requests Japanese government remove TEPCO from management. Imagine putting Walmart in charge of nuclear Chernobyl. Yeah? Let's put McDonald's in charge of Santa Susana, which is 460 times worse than 3 Mile Island. And 3 Mile Island, they radiated 2 million people. But they also said that it was the equivalent of watching colored television for an extra year. Of course, back in those days, colored television was brutal. But it ain't no radiation. It ain't pulsing energy in your body every second. Your body is not attacking the colored television with white blood cells for the rest of your life. Bear with me, we'll get there. So, guess who's... TEPCO doesn't even exist, by the way. They were nationalized. They went bankrupt immediately. It's the government. And there is no government. There's this bizarre secret society death cult. It is no secret that Tokyo Electric is incapable of containing the disaster of Fukushima, which raises the question of why is the nuclear industry still alive? How come the world hasn't stomped them into the ground? TEPCO says running out of room to store contaminated debris. I'm just trying to build you a picture before we get into the rest of the story. You like this? By the way, the water they're claiming, we'll get to it. The water, never forget that they allegedly run the water through the system that don't work, and then they pour that water back in on the nuclear meltdowns at 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit that is atomized and aerosol and ionized and radiated again. Now it's mixed oxide fuel coming out of it. And mixed oxide fuel reactor number 3 on top of that. The whole world should get baseball bats and head down there and beat all of them out of their offices. Reality, you should go down there and burn them out of their offices. TEPCO says running out of room to store contaminated debris at. You like this story? What do you think they've been doing with the debris? What's the date on that? April the 8th, 2014. And multiple nuclear meltdowns. Believe they can reduce 340,000 pickup trucks of debris. 340,000 massive dirty bombs by burning the radioactive wood and other radioactive combustible materials and crushing the radioactive contaminated rubble to use to pave the roads within the plants where the homeless are working. Let me read that again. Maybe that didn't resonate for you. Tokyo Electric believes they can reduce some of the 340,000 one-ton pickup trucks of radioactive debris by burning it, releasing the radiation into the environment. Oh, and other combustible material that'll burn, releasing that radiation from a nuclear meltdown into the environment, and crushing the contaminated rubble to pave the roads with radioactive rubble. And we wonder why there's no insects and all the whales are emaciated and the birds have disappeared. So the nuclear industry is so savage, so heartless and soulless and spineless that they won't evacuate the children, and the teachers got to surround the classrooms with bottles of water to shield the students in the classrooms. Would you send your kid to that school? The nuclear industry won't send their kids to that school, I guarantee you. They'd be happy to send your kids to it. Elementary school in Japan is using water bottles to shield the students from radiation. Instead of evacuating them, which is the moral and ethical thing you would imagine, unless I time jumped into another dimension to another planet that looks like Earth. Elementary school in Koriyama City, which is 230,000 becquerels a square meter, by the way, of just cesium. God forbid we mention uranium and plutonium, which is what the reactors actually ran on, or the curium, which is the biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rods in the first place. And you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium, which is located in Fukushima Prefecture, 34 miles west. 34 miles away from the nuclear meltdowns. They got to use stacks of bottles to protect the children in the classroom because the nuclear industry is too heartless to evacuate them from the nuclear wasteland. It's using water bottles to shield radiation coming from the courtyard, and other areas around the school buildings. And the bottles are filled with water, placed inside of square boxes that are stacked around the classroom. You just want to pick up everything here in the studio and break it when I read that. It's infuriating. Why? I got a better idea. Evacuate the victims. Of course, Congress lacks the authority to make it a crime to poison you with radiation. This is how they're getting away with it. That's how they're doing it. That's the actual fact. Don't try wrapping your mind around it because you'll end up like me. I pulled out half of my hair and it won't be long before it pulls out the rest of it, I'm sure. So, Mommy, we need some plastic bottles. Well, honey, you can take the recyclable ones. What are you going to do with them? Well, we're going to fill them up with water so we don't get radioactive in school, Mommy. Oh, God bless TEPCO. is using water bottles to shield radiation coming from the courtyard and other areas 34 miles away from ongoing nuclear meltdowns that could be going on for the next 10,000 years is the new norm. Trying to be honest is a crime, apparently, this day and age. And the bottles are filled with water and placed inside a square boxes that are stacked around the classrooms. Originally I read this story like 5 times. I was like, nah, it can't be true. According to the school, it seems to have reduced the radiation levels by 1/3. By the way, if you're from the IAEA, that's a Geiger counter. Text me, and I'll tell you how it works. Residents of Fukushima City have been concerned about the high amounts of radioactive material that's been found around their town. 34 miles away. And they're growing food within a couple of miles of the nuclear meltdown. And shipping it to your and murdering your children. If you eat it, you can have leukemia or diabetes or Alzheimer's or dementia or autism or heart problems and liver and lung and respiratory and pituitary that week. Eating Japanese food is Russian roulette. It's the new version of Russian roulette. Residents of Fukushima City are concerned about the high amount of radioactive material. Well, why not leave? Dig a hole, bury TEPCO in it, and leave. That's your job. Okay, so let's talk about the tanks for a minute. 2013, the crippled. That's Mari Yamaguchi, so this is what we expect. There'll be statues of her all over the world in the future, and everybody will walk past it and spit on it. I promise you. 1,000 steel tanks. We got stories coming up about these tanks, by the way. They were bolted together. Built across the plant complex. By the way, if you fill up the tanks, it's 1.4 million sieverts per tank. You can't build another tank on the site. So therefore, the fact to get all the tanks there means the tanks are empty. It's hard to wrap your mind around this. Okay, so 1,000 tanks. We'll walk right through this. 2013, 1,000 tanks. 2014, you guessed it, 1,200 tanks. 2000 and, I'm going to skip that one. 2017, they had 900 tanks. So 2,000 tanks, 2013, 1,000 tanks in 2013, 1,200 tanks in 2014, 900 tanks in 2017. And I like to see you walk with both heels on the ground. Do that for me. I'll take my sight down right away for you. Shove my boat up my bum, and everybody will smile. Fukushima, Japan will have to dump the radioactive water into the Pacific. 2019, they got 8,000 tanks. Wait for that, my fingers to that line over there. 1,000 tanks. And 2021, you guessed it, 1,000 tanks. So it might seem a bit confusing. You're like, Dana, 2013 you had 1,000 tanks, Dana. You can't have 1,000 tanks in 2021 if you had 1,000 tanks in 2013, Dana. Yeah, I know, right? And then they had 1,200 tanks in 2000. I missed it. 2014, they had 1,000 tanks. Welcome to the Twilight Zone. 2017, 900 tanks. Did I miss something that time? 2013 was 1,000 tanks. 2014, 1,200 tanks. Right, in 2017 was 900 tanks. And then 2019 was 1,000 tanks. 2021, 1,000 tanks. So 1,000 tanks, 2,000. So somebody's not being very honest. TEPCO releases a video of groundwater entering the crippled Fukushima site. TEPCO, as if TEPCO actually went there. 2.2 sieverts per hour. Radiation levels around the storage tank used to store thousands of tons of radioactive water at 2.2 sieverts per hour. Which means that the tanks, which are not thick enough to shield you from 2.2 sieverts, are 1.4 million sieverts. Because that's how this works. Like if you fill the tank up, each liter is 2.2 sieverts. The tank is not 2.2 sieverts. You add each liter 2.2 sieverts. And if you're from the International Atomic Energy Agency, give me a call. I'll tell you what that thing up there in the corner is. TEPCO officials cannot estimate how frequent water will be discharged from the Fukushima daiichi. So what they're trying to been doing is that they're trying to convince you now, over the last 3 years, that none of this happened. Everything I'm going to show you today, they rewrote history starting 3 years ago, and now the only water and emissions at Fukushima are from the tanks that they might or might not dump down the tunnel in the future. The industry is lunatic. It's actually gone into idiot mode. They have zero credibility. They need to be disbanded and burned at stakes. You heard me right. Wrap them in straw, right, with big sap straps, and then put them on bonfires and then light it. That's what we should be doing with these people. That's the appropriate thing to do with them. They burnt our planet. We should burn them. I don't understand why they took a job to murder the planet and to cover it up. The IAEA's job right now is to cover up the murdering of the planet. What a stupid job. Why not get a real job, you scumbags? For the next month, the radiation levels of the water will be tested. And then the groundwater that contains less than 1 becquerel per liter. This is important. You remember this for this show. Of cesium-134 and 5 becquerels atomic decays per liter of beta emitters and 1,500 becquerels of tritium. Then it will be released. Okay. TEPCO is still struggling to keep his head above the contaminated water at Fukushima. So water samples taken from a cable trench under the Unit 2 turbine building containing levels of radiation comparable to those seen in the first weeks of the nuclear disaster. First weeks? Well, you think this is going to change? A nuclear meltdown is actually going to change. The test showed, forget the tritium, because you can't find tritium when it's 2.35 billion becquerels of cesium and 750 million becquerels of other radioactive material. Well, first off, you can't have more cesium by a large margin than all the other radioactive materials like plutonium, uranium, and curium and everything else, because the reactors don't run on cesium. This is unbelievably important. Can't you tell by my smile how important this is? We're present in each liter of contaminated water. They got to get that down to 1 becquerel. They got to go from 2.35 billion becquerels to 1 becquerel before they can release it, apparently. So when you release radiation of any amount into a bathtub, you contaminate the whole bathtub. If you take a barrel of dishwater and put it in the swimming pool, then the whole swimming pool is brutally radioactive because it all becomes radioactive because these emitters are pulsing energy for the next millions of years. That's how it works. That's how, right? If it's only had a short life, we wouldn't be in this mess, would we? Just walk away, Renee, you won't see me underneath the wheels of your car. More than 5,000 tons of contaminated water captured in and leaking out of this one cable trench, permeating the soil and leaking. 5,000 one-ton pickup trucks is not a leak. It's an incredible hemorrhage. But we're talking, multiply that, you're talking 10 million sieverts. You can't get back on the sites, eh? And this is only, like, you can't just walk by and find this because you won't live long enough to tell the story. Hey, my Geiger counter says... That's what happens when they're on these numbers. You're like, hey, come over here, check this. And you did. Nobody's going to run over and pick up the Geiger counter and say, holy shit, and they're dead. You need to fight back, you're going to lose the planet. In case one hasn't paid attention, the constant stream of international experts have called for TEPCO to be removed as the organization in charge of decommissioning the crippled Fukushima nuclear reactor. Even the Japanese nuclear regulation authorities called for Tokyo Electric to be removed. Placing all the burden of controlling the site on them won't solve the problem. The IAEA is like, no, TEPCO's got it under control. We don't want to go down there and step on anybody's toes. We'll be fine here in the southern hemisphere. TEPCO to abandon their REVA system. August the 12th, 2014. For the last 3 years, the system has been unused and kept out of operation. I thought they were filtering water, Dana. You can't filter it because the filter is so radioactive you can't get within a football field of it within a few hours. One of the problems will be dismantling and disposing of the system because it's contaminated. Not a problem, it just simply can't be done. They know that. It was put there for photo shoot, that was it. It wasn't physically used to my knowledge. Radiation levels measured in the system pose a risk to workers. TEPCO still facing an uphill battle when it comes to dealing with the water. And underneath the plant, an enormous amount of groundwater, lethal by the liter, flows directly into the ocean. Directly into the ocean. And into the blah, 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 blah. Anchors away, my friends. Anchors away. 3 months ago, TEPCO attempted to divert some of the flow of the groundwater with an underground bypass, but failed to achieve any meaningful results. You take this board, go stand in that trench and hold the board, try to get the water to go that way. Where are you going to divert it to, by the way? This is a comedian's dreams, this story. If you're a comedian, you can make a living on just going out telling jokes about how idiotic the entire nuclear industry actually is. And how corrupt the government is. Here's the current Prime Minister, who's going to step down, of course, criticizes TEPCO's poor management of leaks. Leaks? Maybe leaks in those water bottles at the school that they're trying to shield the kids. Suga said on Monday that it's unacceptable to have contaminated water leak. Every time I hear the word leak, I want to jump on somebody and cut their throat open from the nuclear industry. But that's normal, right? I'm not different, am I? Thinking that way? Everybody thinks that way, right? Ain't it? HIPCO is unable to bring contaminated water issues under control of Fukushima Daiichi. April 21st, 2014. TEPCO can't even tie their own shoelaces, for God's sakes. The utility which operates the Fukushima plant promised to treat all contaminated water by 2015. A goal it now admits will not be realized. No. There are parts of the site we don't even have control of. I'm definitely going to end up in a mental institution one of these days for sure. Yeah, the TEPCO loser crazy. TEPCO! I can see it coming right now. Give me more, give me more, give me a drip. I don't want to know TEPCO no more. Put me in that rubber room with a drip, please. I only want to see birds. You won't see no more flocks of birds, Dana. They're gone. The pretty whales people are seeing. Well, I seen whales down there the other day, Dana. Yeah, but they're emaciated, stupid. There are certain parts of the site where we don't have full control. That's not words you want to hear. The tanks were built hastily to hold the highly contaminated water, which led to a variety of leaks and dead and homeless and destitute and victims of society that were at the plant and related issues. The tanks were built hastily to hold the highly contaminated water, which means you can't build another tank. The tank got to be like 4,000 feet thick if it's 1.4 million sieverts, which is what they are if you fill them up with the kind of radiation we're talking about. And you're lucky because they're only talking about beta. They're not talking about the neutrons, the plutonium, uranium, the curium, the americium, the neptunium. Advanced Liquid Processing System, ALPS, has yet to function reliably. Now, the minute you turn it on, you can never get near it again. The Prime Minister, Abe, unfortunately he's still alive, I think, has pledged $487,000 USD to help handle the issue, including pumping groundwater up before it reaches the site, putting in an ice wall to direct the water it passes through on the site to the Pacific Ocean. But no meaningful progress has been made in these areas. 2014. The ALPS system brought back online. If you turn that on, you are not standing up there in your paper suits. Your paper suits cannot protect you from a nuclear meltdown. It can't. It is the first time that all three lines of the ALPS system have been in operation since March. All three lines. Like if you got 2.2 sieverts of just beta, not counting neutrons and alpha and gamma going through this stuff, you ain't getting near the lines. Now, if you empty the water out of those lines, those hoses, for instance, you take the hose, 10 feet of the hose, and coil it up and bring it down and put it at the subway station in New York. Everybody walks past it, dies that day. You really think? Now, the system becomes so radioactive after a few minutes of filtering this kind of water that if you put clean water through it, forever, the water coming out the other side is lethally radioactive. Because that's how it works. You can't filter radiation. You can't take radioactive water, go through a filter, the filter becomes thousands and millions of sieverts, and the water comes out the other side is good and clean, you can drink it. You shut your pie holes. You scum. It's the first time all three lines of the system bullshit working. The highly radioactive water, which is processed the system, has not only damaged equipment, causing corrosions and leaks, damaged. Three lines were taken offline to fix an area and connecting pipes which are having problems with corrosion. Listen, once, the glassification system in Hanford, it has to run on its own because once you turn it on, you can never get inside the building again. You think this is different? I'm talking to the random people that comes through, or not the regulars ever, because the regulars know what I'm saying anyway. right there. The people that come here on a regular basis are unbelievably educated on this topic. They're the best on the planet right now. Bar nobody. They're the most educated people in history on this subject. Is my regulars, their viewers. I shouldn't call you that either. Just the people that are like me, are fed up with it and are trying to see it through. The ULP system is still being operated in trial status. And TEPCO is not determined when the trial stage will end because you can't filter lethal radiation. Oh, TEPCO's ice wall operation not meeting expectations. I'm just trying to build you a picture. We're in September, you notice that very rarely will you see anybody in the background anywhere of these pictures ever. Turgo Electric announced that it plans to drill freeze wells at 3 feet intervals and create ice wall a mile long at Unit 1, 2. At Unit 2 and 3 reactors where an estimated 11,000 tons of contaminated wastewater believed to have collected. These are lunatics. These are actually lunatics. In an attempt to stem the contaminated water from flowing into the Pacific. That's all it's done for 10 years is flow. Like a normal reactor, before it melts down, needs 4,500 tons a minute. So all the reactors that melted down, if you gave them the normal volume of water, would fill up the tanks in one day 18 times. 200 tons and 300 tons, which is what they're claiming, is poured over the reactor. They're sucking it up, filtering it, and pouring it back over the reactor. If they're doing that, everybody on the planet should go down there and murder them. They're murderers. They're actual lunatics. Now they say they're putting water, they're filtering the water goes back over the reactor so they can account for not having more tanks, see? They're not actually filtering any water. You can't filter this water. An attempt to stem contaminated water. Are you lunatics? Can't open their pie hole without lying for some reason. Ever. At the time, experts were not confident the ice wall plan would be successful. In fact, were concerned that even if the ice wall was constructed, it would only drive the wastewater deeper underground. There was also concerns that the neutrons would bounce off the ice and start a chain reaction. And because because it's an experiment, the taxpayers pay for it. See? But TEPCO is the government, so the taxpayers pay for everything. TEPCO don't exist anymore. They went bankrupt on day 3. TEPCO officials announced today that they have found that the ice wall plans are not progressing according to plan, and we have yet to form the ice stopper because we can't make the temperature low enough to freeze water. The officials said the operations are being hindered by debris and objects in the tunnels. Don't mention tunnels because they're going to allegedly pour water from tanks that don't exist into a tunnel so nobody can see what they're doing. No one can see they're not actually putting water into a tunnel. And China and South Korea is participating in that cover-up. So is the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is not an agency. Their job is to promote nuclear. And you can't promote nuclear with a great big festering sore like Fukushima on the planet. Fukushima is an extinction level event. The officials said the operation being hindered by debris, objects in the tunnel, and the continuing spread of wastewater. Wastewater! At 2.2 sieverts a liter is wastewater. I would love to drown you, or at least waterboard you a couple of hundred times with that wastewater. Fukushima Daiichi Unit 3 debris removal operation relieves 280 billion becquerels per hour. Let's do some math here. 280 billion. Now, don't get me wrong. That's crazy numbers. Because if everybody sucks in one of those atoms that are pulsing to get a becquerel, that's enough to give everybody on the planet an illness in 1 hour. Well, it's much more sinister than that, unfortunately. And it always is when it comes to nuclear. It always is. It always is. Let me get my big head out of there. What was the numbers again? 280 billion. So a gram of cesium, for instance, is 78 billion. More zeros, Dana. 78 billion times 72 is 5 trillion, right? That's millions, that's billions. So it's about, let me get back here. So what they're saying is around, what is it? So 22 grams an hour of radiation be released from the mixed oxide fuel building number 3. It's 280 billion becquerels per hour. That's forever. So the next hour now it's right, and the next hour you add that on, then that's pulsing worldwide every second. Another hour, then that's pulsing worldwide every second. Another hour, that's pulsing worldwide every second. And so the numbers just keep growing until there's hundreds of trillions and trillions and billions of trillions of billions of atoms pulsing energy every second. It's called global warming, by the way. And it's released into the environment, and this is what it looks like. So it's an invisible snowstorm circling the planet, pulsing energy every second. And if you breathe it in, it lodges, sequesters in your muscles, your organs, and your bones. It's pulsing energy every second. Now, South Korea is playing the cover up. Let's keep her going. They're lunatics. The whole industry has got away with it for so long. TEPCO has announced the estimated 1.1 trillion becquerels of radiation was released during debris cleanup operations. 1.1 trillion becquerels. I'm sorry, so a gram is not 24 times what they're talking about. It's 1/24 of a gram. Is what we were just talking about. My mistake on the math there. Right, that's 1/24 of a gram per hour. So a gram is 5,600,000,000,000. 5,600,000,000,000 atoms. So they're estimating 1.1 trillion is 1/5 of a gram is released during the entire decommissioning of reactor 3. That can't be decommissioned because it blew up. It blew up. That's reactor, well, it was reactor 3 there. It blew up. It caught fire and blew up. Then it blew up and caught fire and caught fire and blew up and blew up and caught fire. And guess what? Then it blew up. Where's reactor 3 to? That's reactor 1. My apologies. There's reactor 3. Well, that's what it looked like after, but here's the boom boom. So there goes the fuel pools with decades of reactor cores. There goes the fuel pools coming back down. There goes the reactor, atomized and aerosol. Can you imagine that if you shot everybody in the nuclear industry that told a lie about this, they'd all be dead. There wouldn't be a single one alive anywhere on the planet. There wouldn't, right? Imagine if you shot them for each lie they told. Whoever told a lie, you shot them. You went retroactively back through all the material that they published, and every time they told a lie, you had to shoot them. Even though they're dead, you got to keep shooting. Oh, there's another lie shooting again. There's another lie shooting again. You wouldn't be able to tell if it's a male or a female when you finished going through all their lies. Like, I know this might sound weird to people, but it's... So 280 billion becquerels per hour is 1/24th of a gram per hour. Yeah, that's the new norm, right? So they built this structure around Reactor 3. It doesn't physically touch it because there is no Reactor 3, obviously. I just showed you the evidence. Again, you see nobody standing up there. Stored in 1,000 tanks, which they had in 2013 and they still have in 2021. Japan is failing to live up to the pledge to accept outside assistance and global expertise in the wake of the Fukushima. They're not going to let anybody near the site. Japan. Here we go. IAEA. Science is the key to the Fukushima plant water release. Science. If you can find an actual article or an interview where you got an IAEA expert telling the truth for the whole time, I'll kill myself right on the spot. In fact, every time they tell the truth, I'll chop off a digit. And I won't put no bandages on it. It'll flow just like Fukushima. The water was used to cool the plant's reactors but started to leak. Leak! How can you call that a leak? Does that look like a leak? This is what I mean. They use the word leak over and over and over and over on purpose to disarm the population. The water is treated, which it can't be, as we already showed, and some is reused as cooling water. Now remember, that's from today. That's from today, September 9th, 2021. All the media worldwide is owned by the industry, and they all come out and tell you the same exact paragraphs, exact same sentences, with the same authors typically, if they actually put the author's name on the story, which is very rare when it comes to nuclear. And remember, the first couple of years, they put the name on the story every single time. And I would come out and I burnt them. I come out and I gouged their eyes out every single day, 7 days a week. And I wasn't nice like I am now. I wasn't gentle like I am now. The water was used to cool the plant's reactors, but started to leak after the disaster. The water was used to cool the plant's reactors and started to leak. What do you mean started to leak? What do you mean by leak? Look up the term leak. Because if I ever find you, you're going to have a few leaks. The water is treated and some is reused as cooling water. Which is why they still got 1,000 tanks. 2013 was 1,000 tanks. 2014 was 1,200. 2017 was 900. 2020 was 1,000. 2021 was 1,000. So 1,000 2013, 1,000 2021. Tanks are empty. Because if you had an earthquake, and they have just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in the last couple of years, massive ones too. The tanks are so flimsy, then they would release all the water. You have to abandon the site if they were actually, say, full. But the problem would be if you started filling up a single tank, you can't build another tank. Because you're talking 1.4 million sieverts pulsing from a single tank. That's going to go into a chain reaction and detonate like happened in Mayak, right? And the Tetra River. The water is treated and some is reused as cooling water. Some is used as cooling water and the rest is stored in tanks. They're murdering our planet. They're murdering it. Irrevocably, it's already done now. We've done the research expeditions. It's an extinction event. It's time to stop lying. It's time to hang every freaking thing in the industry and come up with solutions and try to save the planet and the species, some of the species. That's what we should be doing. And we shouldn't do it slowly. They should be waterboarded with this water, or just sent in with a shovel to Reactor 3, like they used to do for Chernobyl. Send them out there with a shovel to pick up a piece of debris. Yeah, they're going to die right away, but they're only nuclear scientists, so who cares? And the rest is stored in tanks. Japan has requested, this is from today, by the way, Japan. Who? Like, what do you mean, Japan? Japan's not a person, you shit for brains. Has requested the IAEA. They don't even know what that is up in the corner. IAEA have never actually physically seen a Geiger counter, let alone touched one. IAEA's assistance to ensure the discharges meet safety standards. Safety standards! Created by monsters, by actual demons, by actual goblins, by actual lunatics. To gain the understanding of the international community. To gain the understanding, to trick and deceive the international community, and to prevent rumors that may hurt the reputation of food produced from the Fukushima nuclear wasteland known as Fukushima Prefecture, formerly known as the breadbasket of the Asian countries. They never stopped growing food there, for goodness sakes. They just send it somewhere else, put another label on it. It's from Timbuktu, and then they ship it into our countries and murder us. That's murder. By the way, if you eat Japanese food, if you're from the International Atomic Energy, it's really good for you. You should eat all the Fukushima food you can get your hands on. And the closer it's grown to the reactor, better it is for your kids. I swear. I swear on my hamster's life. More than a decade after the disaster, Fukushima fisheries and agricultural products are still shunned by smart people. They shouldn't be grown there. The farmers and the fishermen should be shot on sight for producing it. In a normal world, that's what we would do. We shoot murderers, we get rid of murderers. There's so many of them, we got to start shooting. We can't possibly prosecute them. She said her team will listen to all concerned expressed. Hey! Come over to my site. I got some concerns, you creepy, disgusting parasite. You and Sammy, two atomic plague bunnies, will murder the planet for a paycheck. Imagine that. She took this job. She's willing to murder the entire planet for a paycheck, for a stupid paycheck. Oh, I work for the IAEA. Good for you, you scum degenerate creature. You should be thrown in a pig pen with around 15 pigs that are hungry. The contaminated water at the plant has been stored in about 1,000 tanks. Yes, since 2013. Just the same lie over and over and over and over. There's nobody in charge, right? They just keep regurgitating the exact same lie over and over year after year after year. TEPCO says we'll reach their capacity late next year. You can't fill up the tank with 2.2 sieverts a litre of just better, by the way. But really, there's no gamma, there's no alpha, there's no neutrons. When I send the water through an undersea tunnel, discharge it from a location a kilometre away where nobody can, no see, no hear, no talk. And from the coastal power plant, after treating and diluting large amounts of seawater to bring it below releasable limits. No, they dug a hole and they're trying to get out of it. They've lied to you for a decade saying they're putting it in the tanks, but there's nothing in the tanks. They stopped building tanks after 2013. Well, 2014 they had 1,200 they claimed. Government and TEPCO officials That's a word I despise. Despise the word. They're road bumps is what they actually are. Officials say tritium, and then this incredible hubris, arrogance to come out and claim that it's only tritium. They done that after 3 Mile Island too, by the way. Anybody who calls it tritium should be legally executed on site. Controlled releases of every isotope imaginable from normal nuclear plants. So you can't conflate a nuclear meltdown with a normal nuclear power plant. And normal nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation out of the fuel pools all day. So the releases into the ocean, because all nuclear power plants have tunnels that go out into the ocean, all of them, where they're releasing radiation all the time. So they don't have to store it, see? Because they hate us. They hate all the species. They hate your children. And I mean, they hate them. They have so much contempt, I can't possibly articulate it. But they don't got as much contempt for our insects and our birds and our mammals and animals and our species and our human population as me have for them. I actually have more contempt for these despicable creatures, this incredible death cult and secret society, than the entire population of humanity forever. Nothing but contempt for these creatures. I have the worst possible contempt imaginable for these despicable cowards. TEPCO's communications were severed after evacuating critical workers from the plant. You see that there? You have better run if you see that at a nuclear power plant. You run. That's the China syndrome right there, where reactor 1 and some of reactor 2 went down into the earth, hit the water tables, and detonated and split the earth, and the steam coming out of the ground is at lethal doses and is sustained for many weeks at a time, which has continued to release radioactive materials directly into the atmosphere for the last 21 months. But the idea of the tanks is to convince you that nothing else ever got off the site. Right? They got a new narrative. They started this 3 years ago. I've been covering it. The Japanese government, there is no government, there's this death cult, appears reluctant to divulge too much information about the situation for fear of causing panic. I wish it was that simple. TEPCO investigates radiation levels of the exhaust stack at Fukushima Daiichi. Oh, this is fun. See, reactor 2 is still hemorrhaging right there. Well, the exhaust stack is around 25 sieverts. That's lethal immediately. You're at a nuclear meltdown with a dose rate of some 15 sieverts per hour. You're surrounded by this. It's not 25 sieverts and 15 sieverts. It's 2,500 sieverts and 15,000 sieverts. Right? So you can't get near the stacks even today. But you can work on top of the reactor buildings, can you? Like, when you put science in front of this equation, they should all be held accountable for what they're doing. It is estimated the source is between 25 sieverts per hour near surface with a dose rate of some 15 sieverts per hour. Jamaica reveals information about contamination on used cars. Rwanda. All kinds of countries have shipped cars back to Japan. Contaminated vehicles from Japan rejected by Russia too. Don't worry, they'll get them into your country. They'll figure out a way to do it. And Jamaica, so you got Jamaica you got Russia, you got Rwanda recently, right? But if you pay $20, they'll decontaminate the cars. We'll give it a wash and get rid of the radiation, he said. We covered the stories. Thank God the whole world is nothing but illiterates, right? Japan to accept help from France. What's the date on that? 2013, September 25th. Well, guess what? France didn't go there. France is like, holy crap. France destroyed Nigeria, for goodness sakes. Just created a civil war, destroyed the entire country and surrounding countries so they could get cheap uranium to fuel their carbon-free country. It's still going on today. Oh, and then they detonated a couple of hundred nuclear bombs in the French Polynesians until everybody was sick and radiated, for sure. Every single person in the French Polynesians got radiated. And that'll be true now for the babies down there. They used to call them jelly babies. Completely deformed and just like jelly. So carbon-free makes me want to cry. And to show you reactors 3 and 4, or 1 and 2. Here's what's left of reactor 3. Nothing. 190-foot building. Nothing left. But hey, let's just show them pictures of those two buildings. 2.5 years after the onset of the March 11 nuclear disaster, Japan has officially finally accepted international help for the crippled. I don't hear that word. I want to go cripple somebody in the nuclear industry. From France, who will help decommission, dismantle the crippled reactors. They got to use cripple twice there in just a couple of sentences. The Russians offered to help Japan 2 years ago, but are still waiting to be taken up on the offer. And there's the official picture of Reactor 4. Would you like to see other official pictures of Reactor 4? Well, I can't show them to you. Wait now. Here's an official picture of Reactor 4 in 2000, and that was 2013, and this one is 2013. So they're claiming, and all they done was put panels on that structure with cranes. Nobody physically climbed up there, and then pretend it looked like that. And then they done the same thing with Reactor 3, and the structure they built on that is 177 feet tall. The original building was 190 feet tall. And then they pretended that it was perfect building, and that on top of Reactor 3, it looks like this. 100 feet above that, whatever you want to call it there, that fabrication that they jimmied together there to trick you, it looks like that. And we counted tanks. I showed a depiction that at the beginning of the show was 750 tanks for the whole site. But see all the fumes down there by the ocean? The wind is blowing towards the ocean. The site is abandoned. And like they used to say, there's 8,000 people on the site every single day. But whenever you see these pictures, there's nowhere for 8,000 people to hide. And what is that smoke that we're looking at down there? That's the China syndrome, releasing radiation into the environment. And then look at these pictures here of IAEA. Why would you tape that onto their paper suits for? Why would you print it out and tape it on? That's probably photoshopped actually, but why would you, even if it's not, why would you do something like that? For a photo, right? Oh, the IAEA is there. There's the picture. IAEA, if you try to drag the IAEA, they would claw your eyes out. No, please, 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 no, Dana, no, Dana, no, Dana. There wouldn't be a nail left on their finger. They would claw the pavement trying to get away from you. They literally would bite their leg off like a beaver to get away from you. You could never get the IAEA there. Even if they were drunk, they crack the whiskey bottle and they stab you with it before they let you drag them to Fukushima. Japanese government to fund underground wall at Fukushima Daiichi as more criminal charges filed against TEPCO. You don't need to file any criminal charges against TEPCO. Just go shoot them. Nobody on the planet is going to care. Nobody on the planet is going to say, well, that's a crime. You didn't do it on YouTube live so we can all enjoy it. A senior ministry official admitted that the Japanese government plans to shoulder the full cost. TEPCO is the Japanese government. They were nationalized, which is projected to be around $470 million to build an ice wall with no bottom in it. Traditionally, frozen walls have normally been installed and used for a couple of years at most. Additionally, the underground wall will not be ready for at least 2 years. In the meantime, the water will leak out. Every time I hear the word leak, I just want to break something. Preferably a nuclear academic. It gets better. Utilities estimated 1,000 tons of groundwater rushes into the complex every day. Utility. Not decommissioned authority, but a utility. Violent releases of material, this is the China syndrome, at the Fukushima Daiichi site. On January 7, around 10:15 in the morning, an enormous billowing cloud of black smoke erupted from the grounds of the nuclear power complex and headed south down the coastline. Well, it didn't head south down the coastline. It radiated the whole site and they had to run away. I'll put that on the big screen. Wait for it. Because it gets to nighttime, right? You see the smoke? When you see that, you run. It don't matter, like, you see that, you're there and say you got $10,000 and you lay it right there. Don't pick up that $10,000. Run. Say your baby's over there crawling, right? Don't go try to save your baby. You run. Too late to save the baby. Smoke. Oh, looks better at nighttime though. This is TEPCO's cam. Now, the steam that's going to come up, if you're caught in that steam, you die right there on the spot. And everything the steam touches becomes lethal. So if you don't run that second, don't wait for the sirens, don't tune to your public television station, run. Run like you never ran before. Just jack a car and run. Run, baby. Run, baby. This is absurd. That's China syndrome, what you're looking at there. Right? That's China syndrome. Half of the Fukushima workers may be illegally contracted, says Inepto. Notice everybody standing on these steel plates? Because what they done was, they came in with bulldozers originally, and they bulldozed all the fuel assemblies and rods and pellets and everything under enormous amount of ground with remote control alleged bulldozers. It took a long time, by the way. And we've covered 2,000 pictures from the first 30 days where they claimed there was thousands of people, 3,000 people on the site every day. These are ludicrous. Just one big lie after one big lie after another big, huge, massive lie after another great big despicable lie after another despicable lie. But these steel plates, so they paved over the dirt, then cement over that, and then pavement over that because of the neutron burst, the alpha shine, the gamma burst coming out of the ground. And so when it's like 5 feet thick, they sent in the homeless. And wherever they dropped dead, they put in more steel plates, then more pavement, and more cement, and more pavement, and more steel plates. Then they sent in more homeless. And wherever they dropped dead, they sent in more cement, and more steel plates, and more pavement. And they've been doing that forever down there. The whole site now looks like a drainage ditch. And you always see these weird pictures of people just wandering around, meandering along. Looks like a bit of tank over there. Nobody's ever working. And these paper suits, I've never seen a paper suit, and I got absurd amount of pictures of these people. I've never seen one of those paper suits dirty, let alone cut open. Go down to your local utility stores and buy the paper suits, which are the same ones, to go paint one of your rooms. And go home and try not to tear that open. I double dare you. Japan may have to change decontamination efforts after homeless people shortage. They're running out of the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society, immigrants who don't speak the language. I just want, look, they're in paper suits, spraying water. Welcome to the world's stupidest, most bizarre subject on human history is nuclear. Death machine, death factories, disease factories. Nuclear is a disease factory, right? All nuclear power. Decontamination efforts in the wake of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster facing problems. Most of which seems to be their own creation. In reality, the decontamination efforts to date have been relatively ineffective. And some argue a complete waste of tax funds. Well, you can't decontaminate something, see? Radiation doesn't work that way. According to the Fukushima Labor Bureau, only 10% of 1,800 jobs offered for decontamination work were filled. And so Harvard's not going to go there, Yale's not going there, Stanford's not going there, Oxford is definitely not going there, MIT, you can't even get them on that side of the country, let alone the Fukushima. The Labor Ministry attributes low numbers to fear over radiation exposure, and the most dangerous job on the planet gets low pay. Many people expect high wages for the most dangerous job in human history. Hello Work, a public job placement, Hello Work. They're sitting around counting all the money they're supposed to give to the homeless and that they stole from them. And they said, well, let's name the company Hello Work. Pass me that sake. In reality, wages for the work are almost the same as those for regular construction. Well, it's much lower than that. It's the worst job you can get is working at these sites. Well, you're not working, you're being sacrificed. The decontamination slaves cannot last, an official of a local contractor told bootlicker GG Press. Record radiation levels found in fish at Fukushima Daiichi. The fish were 250,000 becquerels of just cesium and 510,000 becquerels per kilogram of 134 and 137. Well, first off, I've been doing this for so long. Every time I hear the word cesium, I just want to go cut someone's throat in the nuclear industry. The reactors don't run on cesium. The biggest byproduct is curium. Now, I'm not going to physically cut anybody's throat. I'm not healthy enough to catch them, right? TEPCO shuts down ELP system at Fukushima Daiichi after contamination found in storage tanks. So this is a fun story. You know, you remember the ELP system. The ELP system is it's the equivalent of a witch on a broom flying across your sky. It's the same as the Sasquatch. That's what the ELP is. It's like Davy Jones' locker. There is no such thing. I love these pictures. The beautiful, perfectly clean suits, no rips in them, no duct tape on them to patch it up, and everybody standing there doing nothing. And cape, you literally wonder about the human race when you deal with this subject. On Wednesday, workers at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant were forced to halt. The workers being the homeless and the destitute, were forced to halt the advanced liquid processing system used to decontaminate radioactive water at the crippled. I've never heard the word crippled, man. I just really want to pull somebody's eyeball right out of their heads. The ELP system is a critical part of the water decontamination storage process. It's a critical part. It didn't work. It can't work. You can't filter lethal liters of radiation. It just can't be done. The whole idea was to trick and deceive and manipulate you. And it worked. For now. But it has had a series of problems during the test operations, which have raised questions about its viability. According to INEPTO officials, the performance of one of the 3 lines in the ELP system has drastically deteriorated. So the ELP system found that the beta-emitting radioactive materials were only reduced to 1/10 of the levels before processing, while the system designed to reduce those contaminants 1/1,000,000th the initial levels. If you take all the here's another way to look at it. You're going to pour water over nuclear fuel. And then you're going to filter that water, which is now nuclear fuel. So the filter now is a nuclear fuel rod. And then you're going to pour water through that nuclear fuel rod and expect it to come out clean the other side. That's the lie, right? Oh yeah, we're going to put it through a filter that now becomes way more radioactive than a fuel rod by a couple of 100,000 sieverts. And the water that comes out the other side is going to be so clean, you can brush your teeth with it, Dana. Yeah, you can put it in your fish bowl, in your goldfish tank. And little Freddy will be totally fine, Dana. I won't do that to Freddy. Workers shut all 3 of the lines in the treatment system down in order to determine the cause of the problem and to acid clean the filters that are hundreds of thousands of sieverts. First off, if you take acid and put radioactive isotopes into it, you can't destroy the isotopes. Acid doesn't do it. They can't help themselves, right? They can't open their mouth. This is why all public relation firms should be dropped into a wood chipper. Workers found high levels of beta-emitting radioactive materials in 3 tanks used to store treated wastewater. 2.2 sieverts per liter of just beta. And in other tanks used to transfer the treated water. All of these tanks must now be decontaminated before the ELP system is brought back online. You can't decontaminate a tank with 1.4 million sieverts in it. I can decontaminate you, though. I can, right? If you work for TEPCO or something like that, or the nuclear industry, I can actually decontaminate you. Yeah, you're not going to have any skin left anywhere on your body, but you'll be fine for the rest of your life. I promise. I swear. We don't know yet when we can resume operating the system, as we have not detected the cause of the defect. No, because it's elite. Everybody goes near it, drops dead. You can't filter it. They didn't. The whole system was built to manipulate you. It can't be done. It'll be done everywhere. It would have been done a long time ago. Cesium found in Japanese steel exported to South Korea. Dirty bastards, eh? Dirty scumbags shipping radioactive steel to other countries. Degenerates, boy. That probably come from Fukushima on top of that. South Korea authorities plan to return the contaminated steel. In fact, South Korea had to send back 6 million pounds of lethal fish at one point. Because Japan's insane. Why are you murdering the planet? Why are people sitting there and letting them murder the planet and all the species? What the fuck is wrong with you people? Why are you so dark? Why are you so evil? Do you realize how late we are? How late it is? How far down the hole we're actually already in? Over allowable levels in steel. There's allowable levels of radiation now in steel. It was just yesterday when we had a planet. Now we don't anymore. July 29th, 2014. TEPCO says the groundwater bypass operation is not having an effect at Fukushima. TEPCO. TEPCO says jump, and everybody goes up. TEPCO officials have admitted the groundwater bypass operations failed to reduce the tons of water from entering the crippled reactor buildings. Crippled. Go to any media and that's the word you're going to see is crippled. Therefore, that media should be disbanded. They should be put in jail forever. I prefer they be dismembered, but that's probably illegal, so just put them in jail forever. And crippled, every time I hear that word, man, just according to TEPCO, 400 tons of groundwater. Well, the reactors need 4,500 tons a minute normally. When they melt down, they need a lot more. And 400 tons was the amount of water that goes to the fire hose each day. That's where they got that number from originally. From the original day one. Remember, they allegedly had fire hoses that were pumping 400 tons a day of water on the reactors. That's after they blew up. All they done was lie, and nobody's in charge. Just the whole nuclear industry wakes up every day and runs out and tells lies. It's been that way for 75 years, unfortunately, and we're sick of it. And we're not going to sit in silence anymore. And we're not going to be coward anymore. And we're looking for revenge, and we want our pound of flesh. Extremely contaminated materials. TEPCO is an extremely contaminated material. Utility announced that its groundwater bypass operation would reduce the amount of groundwater by 100 tons per day. See, the idea of the wall was that they have less water to account for. The idea of the filtration system was that once it was filtered, now they can pour it back on the melter reactor. They got less water going into the tanks every day. All of these systems were designed to explain why they only got 1,000 tanks in 2021 when they had 1,000 tanks in 2013. A TEPCO scum degenerate told the scum degenerate reporters that 2 months after beginning pumping operations, utility has yet to see any real effect from the operation on water levels in the reactor buildings. And scumbags, Inepto says they don't know when, if ever, the pumping operation will have any tangible effect on groundwater level. And in June, Inepto was forced to admit that the ice wall operation was also intended to control groundwater flow, was also unsuccessful. So the diversion of water was unsuccessful. The ice water wall was unsuccessful. The pumping was unsuccessful. The ELP systems was unsuccessful. And after 2 months of pumping calcium chloride into the ground, after $500 million later, near the Unit 2 reactor, which is gone China syndrome, right? Officials announced they weren't able to get the water to freeze to form the ice wall, which everybody knew originally anyway. And nobody is surprised anymore. Like, the right thing to do is tell the truth. I apologize tonight for saying we should hurt TEPCO and the nuclear people in the nuclear industry. I would rather they spent their life in a little box. Well. 750 tanks, by the way, not 1,000. We counted them, right? Woo! Welcome to the world's stupidest planet in the universe. It's known as the Earth, where everybody got one thumb up their butt and the other one in their mouth, except for the people here, of course. Yeah, so we raised another 133 last night. Thanks to James Olhan, who's donated many times this year, particularly for the research expeditions that we've done where there's no spiders left in the forest. There's no flocks of birds flying in the sky anymore. There's no fish jumping in any of the ponds. There's barely any insects to be found. We've seen this multiple expeditions to Alaska. All the species wiped out along the entire coastline. And they're monitoring me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's their job, to get paid to monitor me. You imagine what kind of degenerates they actually are. What kind of low-life scumbag child molesters they actually are. Imagine being paid to murder the planet by keeping the truth at bay. James Lucid, who also, by the way, has endlessly supported me. And thank you too, James. Oh, James. That's awesome. And Dana Nasana, who, what can I say? Who went above and beyond. Many people. You're the heroes. Nancy Sand, good night, everybody. Goldstein, Jerry, Scott Brady. It's Thursday. I must admit I'm working way harder at this than I used to. And I ran non-stop, and now I'm in a panic because we're losing all the species on also the East Coast. Steve Edwards. Yeah, they changed the numbers from Rankins to Roachants and Sieverts, many different acronyms to confuse you on purpose. Chuck, good night, everybody. Warren, I'm just going up to the comments. Good night to everybody else that are sitting back or joining us or watching this later. And hugs for everybody and your loved ones and your pets. And it's such a difficult subject for people. John Cranshaw, hello everybody. And sometimes I get a little cranky, I apologize. I only served one king. Hi there. Conrad and Rob Thompson. Ella. Yeah, we had lots of people tonight. It's such a difficult subject, such a morbid subject on top of that, unfortunately. But an important one, but I can understand why it's difficult for people. Colette. Hi, Colette. Hope everybody's doing good. Narad, you left? Oh, I see you found me. Still going strong, yeah. Port Angeles. So that's it for me this week. That's it for this week. I'm going to take a couple of days off. Sunday is September 11th anniversary. And every year I've done a video for September 11th anniversary, every single year. And then after a little while, they'll take the video down and give me a strike. So this year I'll do the show. And then I'll download the video and I'll take it down off my site and I'll put it up at another site. And then I'll put a link to it on my website, thenuclearproctologist.org. Because we just got a warning for being honest. I'm a little cranky tonight because of that, I suppose. Because I'm not a bad person for being honest. Cub, Coup, 812. Yerloff, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Scott. We'll see everybody. Now, tomorrow we're going to get the tail end of the hurricane hitting the province. And I was out working on the boat today. I put that part on the boat today, by the way, and it's the wrong part. The plug doesn't plug in. Idiots. And so we're running out of time to get out and do research. I'm just going to have to go with the old stuff and at lower speeds. We can't lose the season. We already lost a lot of the expedition when they took down my main site with 24,000 subscribers. So we lost precious time. We had all kinds of equipment breaking down on us. It was difficult to fund everything this year. And I'm not giving up, and I'm not going away, and I'm not slowing down. I'll find a way. And so everybody that did donate, you're the most important, because we will get through these rough times, and there will be easier times where we won't have to struggle. We can't back off. The most important thing is we can't give an inch. We never take a step backwards. You always got to take 2 steps forward. When they push, you always got to take 2 steps forward. Good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody on Sunday. Sunday will be a great show. We're going to cover 911. So I'll get busy tomorrow and next day. We'll come up with a fresh 911 presentation for Sunday. It's going to be just spectacular. Lots of graphics. We're going to bring it the truth. We're not going to sit in silence. Those days are gone. Good night, everybody. God bless. We'll see everybody on Sunday. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody in a couple of days. God bless.